Semifinal match here, the rematch between Spicklemire, Elenbogen, and McVety. Elenbogen last time was the winner as he faced off against Collins Mullen earlier today. In his own words, though, this matchup's pretty close.
Yep. I like that Spider-Man shirt McVety's wearing. He looks kind of like the new kid. I don't know his name.
Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
That's Spider-Man.
It looks kind of like Peter Parker.
And Andrew on the play starts with Hollowed Fountain. Jeskai Control, these Colonnade decks have just really picked up recently. Collins on 6, Scries to the top. We'll start with a Lava Spike. Elenbogen on 2 copies of Lightning Helix. That's one of the cards he really counts on in this matchup.
Right, and Lava Spike, not the scariest start from the burn deck. You really want to get online with creatures early.
Yeah, especially in a matchup like this where a Goblin Guide could connect 2 or 3 times.
Right. Yeah, you want to try to get enough cards be good for 4 points of damage as possible. Especially because of what you're talking about. Lightning Helix is sort of a counter spell.
And Elenbogen. Lands entering the battlefield tapped. That's out of respect for burn.
Yeah, you want to avoid fetching and shocking to the extent that you can in this matchup.
Well, here's Goblin Guide. It's a turn late for Collins. However, Andrew didn't start on a land that makes red mana. So you figure this is either good for damage or a land.
Right. Yeah, getting Path to Exile's not really that bad for you.
So Colin takes the opportunity. Looks like he has something else in mind as Scalding Tarn's going to go ahead and get a Sacred Foundry. I suppose Eidolon of the Great Revel, you want to get that down as soon as possible.
Yeah, the main phase fetch shock definitely suggests that.
Yeah, and you see him shuffle one to the front of his hand.
That means that the path would be good for 2 points.
Yep, and Andrew will, without a second thought, path that guy away.
Yeah, that's just going to happen.
2 damage, though. It still is a burn spell, and Collins gets a land.
Yeah, on the slower blue deck side of this matchup playing against burn, the rule of thumb is to cast as many spells as you can as fast as you can.
Yeah.
You just kind of lose if you don't do that.
And now Andrew, head on hand. He's got a Cryptic Command at the front of his hand, but the question I'm going to ask is whether he has another land.
I think he has an island. Don't know he has a red source.
Okay.
Which doesn't. That'll give him some pause. I don't know if he has something like an opt he can look at casting main phase.
Yeah, basic island here. Because his deck really plays out on 2 and 4, if he's playing an island on turn 3, that does suggest there's some mana issue going on.
Right. He has a Logic Knot in hand, though he hasn't used a fetch land. His only card in graveyard is Path to Exile, so he can't Logic Knot for too much.
Goblin Guide from Collins Mullen. Andrew actually cannot counter this with Logic Knot.
Right. Looks like the other cards in hand, Lava Spike, Rift Bolt, Searing Blaze. The Searing Blaze shouldn't really convert to too much.
Search for Azcanta is the top card for Andrew. He will now cast Opt with Goblin Guide in combat. Scry Search to the bottom. No time for that kind of card in this matchup.
No.
Draws. Is it Terminus? No, but it is his 4th land.
Yep, 4th land is well and good.
Guide comes in to hit Andrew down to 13. You see for Collins, Spike, Boros Charm, Rift Bolt, and then one other. He's got a 4-card hand.
Don't mind suspending Rift Bolt here.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. It does take away the opportunity to Boros Charm if Andrew taps out for something.
Yep, that much is certainly true.
And it looks like Collins will just leave up the 2 lands as he passes.
Yeah, if you Boros Charm end step, that's your best card if it resolves, so Elenbogen can look at casting a Cryptic Command. I suppose you play into Logic Knot with this. Getting Logic Knot's actually not very good for Mullen on the Boros Charm.
Tarn for Elenbogen, and now we see that end step Boros Charm. Elenbogen has a Logic Knot and a Cryptic Command. He can Cryptic here. If he does, he's tapped out for Collins' turn. He's going to take some heat.
It's possible that he's cracking this fetch to use that as the delve for the 3rd mana for the Logic Knot.
Okay. I'm going to get that basic mountain. Now has his red source. So if Andrew Cryptic draws here, he's taking 2 off the guide to go to 10, and he'd expect probably 6 points of burn, 2 burn spells in Collins' hand to be unleashed. And there's counter draw off Cryptic.
I suppose if he's set up, he doesn't have a Lightning Helix or anything like that just yet. You want to draw a card, try to set up for a turn where you can Logic Knot and Lightning Helix on the same turn.
Collins drew a land. That's a win for Andrew. 3 burn spells, though. Andrew will go down to 10. Top card, Snapcaster Mage. Not bad.
That's one that can get hit by Searing Blaze that seems to be stranded in Collins' hand for the medium
Yeah,
future.
okay.
You try to avoid exposing that one to the extent that you can.
Spike to put Andrew to 7. Collins has a land. He could just hard cast that Rift Bolt right now. Instead, he's going to suspend it. And then make the land drop.
Yeah, you want to leave this uncracked fetch so that you can have landfall on Searing Blaze whenever a creature shows up.
Oh, I have a question, though, Ryan. If you're really savvy on Andrew's side, Collins could have, while you were tapped out, fetched for a basic mountain and Rift bolted you for sure, but he didn't. With 1 card in hand, is this just a tell that it's Searing Blaze?
It sure reads like it.
Yeah, it's subtle, but Andrew just drew a Snapcaster.
Right.
If he can catch that tell, he may not play the 2/1.
And it's also something you should be paying attention to in the matchup in general. You want to make sure you don't want to expose a Snapcaster Mage, and when it's already on your mind, that kind of tell, it should inform him to try not to cast that if at all possible.
Yeah, Flooded Strand from Andrew. So in his mind, he's already down to 6. Says go. Rift Bolt upstairs. This would send Andrew to 4. You've got to be pretty concerned.
Yeah, depending on what he has for this Goblin Guide, it's tough to not go for a counter on that. But the play could very well be Snapcaster Mage. You have to crack the fetch land if you want to cast the op, and then just leave up Logic Knot for the Searing Blaze.
A swing. Jace is the top card. Collins drew Lightning Helix. So with Andrew at 4, if he cracks this fetch land, he's dead. To a bunch of cards. Here's Snapcaster Mage. Target's opt. He wants the opportunity to block Goblin Guide. Hoping to get a Searing Blaze from Collins.
Right.
If Andrew has read the situation correctly, he should know Searing Blaze is here.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not know, but should strongly suspect it.
Right.
And Lightning Helix upstairs is going to be the play from Collins. I like this a lot.
Yeah, he wants to get the Logic Knot with the Helix.
Right. Well, if he does, he wins, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's also just not good. I mean, the Logic Knot, the Helix resolving Stone Rains that Flooded Strand, and then Elenbogen's resigned to drawing Jace the Mind Sculptor next turn, which is not very good here.
And Searing Blaze, if Andrew's at 1 then, it doesn't even need landfall anymore.
Yeah, it just needs a creature to target.
Yeah. Big check here. If Andrew counters, he loses. And he's going to counter.
Well,
I think Collins has got him.
There it is.
He did not. Yeah, that thing, you have to read him for Searing Blaze. And I think Andrew missed the tell. And now he's missed the tell. He's going to lose the game.
Well, it's tough. I don't know that Elenbogen can win
it's
by
tough,
not countering.
Here's that land and Searing Blaze. 3/3. Guide is 2 more.
You'd need a Spell Snare to win a game like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to game 2.
Collins Mullen. Some nice sequencing. That was the timing on that Lightning Helix was really good.
Yeah, I like that play a lot.
So, Collins takes the first game of any of these. Let's look at some sideboarding. On Elenbogen's side, 3 Stony Silence, 3 Ancestral Vision. We've seen him use those to great effect, saying earlier that may have been overkill for some of those matchups.
Right.
2 Dispel, 2 Vendilion Click, Spell Queller, Surgical Extraction, Negate, Engineer Explosives, and a 3rd Lightning Helix.
So the permissive elements here, the 2 Dispel, the Negate, those all play very well in the matchup. The extra Lightning Helix is great. Beyond that, I think there's an argument for Spell Queller because it engages in combat well with all of the creatures that Mullen is presenting here, and you can use it to buy some time against some burn spells, and it can be a really big difference maker. Vendilion Click is okay. You do kind of want to lower your curve in general. You don't want to be heavy on Jace the Mind Sculptors to fairies, and you want to... you can use it as a kind of 3-mana removal spell in the matchup, which is fine.
Yeah. Now, for Collins' side, 4 Destructive Revelry, 3 Satyr Fire Dancer, 2 Exquisite Firecraft, 2 Paths to Exile, 2 Searing Blood, a Rest in Peace, and a Skull Crack. Well, a lot of these things answer creatures and enchantments. Andrew doesn't play too many of either.
Right. The Exquisite Firecraft's the big find here. Uncounterable, 4 damage burn spell. Don't mind Skull Crack against the Lightning Helix deck. That one's fine. Mostly looking at the Firecrafts. He kind of wants to be off of all of the Searing Blazes. How many is Mullen on in his main deck this weekend? He has 4 main deck Searing Blazes, so 2 Firecraft and a Skullcrack. Still leaves you with 1 left over, which I suppose you generally do have a window to try to leverage it. Elenbogen's going to be casting Snapcaster Mage in most of the games. 1 copy might be fine.
Copy's fine. I mean, you don't want to go for Destructive Revelry or anything else. I mean, Anders generally might board out some number of Azcanta in this matchup. They're pretty slow. He may keep them in. I don't know if whether you can count on it one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, you won't always have a target for it, and the matchup's really never about Azcanta the Sunken Rune. If Elenbogen is getting to that stage of the game, he's probably already won.
Yeah, I guess the question would be which one's more likely to be live as a burn spell, whether you want the Revelries or the Blazes.
Yeah, I think you have a reasonable chance to have a window for 1 Searing Blaze.
Yeah, I like leaving 1. I mean, the double Searing Blaze is where you really get me on the card.
That's when you're in trouble.
So they're getting ready for a second game. Recently on StarCgames.com, we announced our Season 1 schedule. This is 2019. You can see all the stops on the SCG Tour. We are going to Columbus, Worcester, Indianapolis, Baltimore, Dallas, and Syracuse in the first part of the year. We have with some Team Modern return first time on the SCG Tour. That one non-unified rules, so any 3 Modern decks will go. We do have Modern and Team, and we're returning to Standard Opens. That will be in Dallas. We have our Legacy Open is March 2nd and 3rd in Syracuse before our regional championships. And the second half of the season, we go to Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Richmond, Syracuse, and Louisville before we end the season at SCGCON. That's the Season 1 Invitational, June 7th and 9th.
Yeah, bunch of cool stops, bunch of cool tournaments. Really curious to see how many teams show up to just the Team Modern with 3 copies of the same deck. That'll be fun to watch.
I want to see 3 times hexproof. Just that's the team I want.
Get a lot of downtime with that configuration.
You guys can discuss your plays between rounds, strategy.
Yeah. And this was the 7 I mulliganed.
Okay.
And this was the 6 I kept. It had creatures and auras. How about you?
Sometimes I too put auras on my creature. Did yours die? No,
oh my, no.
Sounds like a good matchup. Keep on both sides here keep on Anders' side, then Collins takes the mulligan.
Yeah, Burns a tough deck to mulligan with. He was trying to add 3 together 7 times.
Collins actually took a mulligan in game 1. Still was able to put it together.
Yeah.
Goblin Guide ended up being worth a lot of damage, connecting for 6 that game, even though it was a turn 3 Goblin Guide.
Yeah, his sequencing worked out there too. On turn 2, playing Eidolon, overcommitting the 1 mana creature plus Lava Spike. So got 2 damage for the Path Exile.
For a player like Collins Mullen, who is one of the best players here on the tour with humans, which I think a lot of players consider a top-tier deck, what do you have a thought of what to attribute the switch to burn for? I mean, by most players, I would say most people I talk to consider humans a higher tier deck than burn.
There's a lot of chatter about burn just being good in Modern right now. You have a number of favorable matchups. Searing Blaze is so good against humans. Yeah, that kind of matchup you do like a fair amount. And the burn versus Jeskai matchup, it's relatively close. And against a deck like Azorius Control, I think you're fairly solidly favored. Burn just lines up pretty well against a lot of the format.
Second game 1, we have to report on Todd Stevens with Celestia Tokens takes the game off Max McVety. So for our team here from Ann Arbor, a bit of an uphill battle now down 2 games. Mentioned before that Jody would need one of his teammates to pick up a win. Well, what about both of them? Goblin Guide attacks in turn 1 for Collins, shows Snapcaster on top of the deck. Andrew has no interest in drawing Snapcaster, so he will opt it away as he goes to 18.
In the early game, you want removal spells and land drops, and Snapcaster Mage isn't really either one of them.
Mountain and a pass for Elenbogen.
Looks like he played Mountain over Celestial Colonnade in his hand. He's leaving up Lightning Bolt here. You got to get that guide off the table. That makes sense.
Sure. Eidolon of the Great Revel from Collins. 2 basics means he's not really worried about a Logic Knot. Removal spell's fine as well.
Yeah, and Elenbogen left up this lightning bolt. He really wanted that Goblin Guide trigger to try to draw a land, but he's pretty incentivized to lightning bolt in response to the Eidolon.
So Andrew had a decision last turn. He had to play basic mountain or basic island.
Yeah, leaving up logic now would have worked out.
I mean, you can't play it that way, but he is being punished as now the guide swings in, and Andrew doesn't want to bolt into the Eidolon, so he's just going to take the 2 off the guide.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just no casting here in the face of Eidolon. I don't know if he's really hoping to miracle a Terminus.
Well, he's going to bolt. I guess bolting the Eidolon just makes more sense here. It's the same amount of damage. If you leave that on around,
you have to get that off the table. Yeah, you can't bolt that and then path. So, but he doesn't have white mana this turn anyway.
Well, if you bolt the Goblin Guide, you take 2 off the Eidolon trigger, and then you're committing to another Eidolon trigger later on.
Right.
But here we see Swift Spear, Lava Spike. Collins is moving in quickly for the kill. Elenbogen has Opt on top, and he's fallen far behind.
Yeah, I mean, Elenbogen's draw, he's really struggling.
And pass. Back over to Elenbogen.
He's got to find some lightning helixes, and he's got to do it quickly. It's not really even enough to just be removal spells anymore. His life total is in a very precarious situation. Looks like Collins has drawn that Searing Blaze, but we saw Elenbogen put Snapcaster Mage on the bottom. Not that one would have particularly good targets anyway.
Andrew's at 7 with Collins having a pretty full hand. He's going to tap some lands to either answer these creatures, but then when he does, his counter magic is down. It feels like his removal just has to be Lightning Helix specifically. Path to Exile and Goblin Guide.
And he chose to cast that Path to Exile. He had the option to try to opt and find Lightning Helix. He's leaving up Logic Knot here. Collins just casting a Boros Charm here would be a pretty big deal. That's why he wants to leave up his counter magic.
Yeah, now the worry is that if he just takes 1 and Collins plays nothing, Andrew can't really play anything either. Right? If he tries to opt here, then a burn spell will fly upstairs.
You at least don't get the Swift Spear trigger if you wait until after combat for whatever that's worth.
And that is worth something. I mean, it's worth a life point, which he's running out of pretty quickly. Lightning Helix, and this is actually going to be before damage. I think Andrew now can respond. There is the Prowess trigger.
He won't have any white mana to try to opt into Helix, but he could find a Lightning Bolt to take care of the Swift Spear. Or even just a Dispel for the Helix wouldn't be the worst.
I mean, so something like Bolt Logic Knot would be perfect. I mean, don't think he has anything of that strong.
Yeah, he doesn't have the Bolt. He can try to opt into it.
Okay.
It's either opt or Logic Knot
if
here.
If he opts into the Bolt and misses, it's just a lot of damage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not for 1 counters the Helix. Andrew takes 2 from the Swift Spear. He'll drop to 5. Back over to Collins. Or to Andrew we go now.
Didn't get a great look. I want to say Flooded Strand was the draw for Elenbogen here. Mullen with 3 cards in hand. Elenbogen had 5. That's not where you want to be in this matchup.
Not at all. And these fetch lands that Andrew has drawn, this pretty hard to manage. So Andrew will cast Opt. He scries 1 to the top, and it looks like that was a Dispel. That's a pretty fine card to have.
It's not the worst. He needs to kill the Swift Spear, though.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of Dispels if you never get the 1/2 off the table. You can have any number you want. You just get attacked for 1 5 times.
Collins has drawn a Goblin Guide as well. His hand is 4 cards. It's a land, a guide, and 2 red cards. Goblin Guide is the play. I mean, there's these creatures that it resolves. Andrew's got to have something. He chose to not Logic. No, Logic Knot's gone. Just actually doesn't have a choice here. Cryptic Command. He's thinking, tap. Are we tap drawing? I think we are.
He's not going to have an opportunity to counter a spell with that. Took him off Dispel here, which he can't be thrilled about, but he doesn't get punished.
Yeah, Ryan. Collins just passed the turn. Do we have? Is that 2 Searing Blazes?
Yeah, it might be.
If that is, hold on. Andrew's still alive here.
Yeah, he
passes
still
back.
has
Yeah.
Opt. Miracling into Terminus would be huge if you can find that with the Opt. Even finding Lightning Helix would be great. He's leaving up Dispel the whole time.
Yeah, and he'll need it. Collins just picked up a Boros Charm. We go to combat. It's another tap draw. Andrew has left up Dispel. He's got a Teferi in his hand that he can build his way toward.
Yeah, with that Dispel backup, that's pretty powerful.
Not to mention tap draw. If he were to find a Terminus here, this will be quite the Cryptic command.
Ideally, he doesn't want to crack this Flooded Strand, just because going to 4 means he has to fight over every Boros Charm.
Yeah. Tap draw. It is not a Terminus. It's another land. I think it's another Flooded Strand, though.
Flooded Strand is pretty gross.
Yeah.
Finding Terminus as a top card on his own turn, I think, is better for him.
Collins now has to decide if he wants to attempt Boros Charm here. Dispel, of course, gets him either way. The decision's interesting from Collins' side. Now, Andrew actually doesn't have the Dispel. He will crack the fetch land, go to 4, and it does dispel the Boros Charm. And it was a lethal Boros Charm. Andrew asks, do you have another one? No. Okay, we're still playing.
Yeah, and now Elenbogen has to think about what cards could possibly be stranded in Mullen's hand.
Yeah.
The most common one is just going to be lands. I'd be surprised if Elenbogen puts Mullen having 2 Searing Blazes in hand.
Right. The question on what I'm interested in is, has he found a window for Teferi? He's got to answer these creatures at some point. And I like it Teferi will bring counter magic back up again once the trigger resolves.
He would prefer to draw a castable spell that's not Teferi. I think if he's Teferiing this turn, it's because he's desperate.
Does draw. Looks like a fetch land. And yeah, this is Teferi. Plus to draw. Did he find anything? Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, that's a something, all right.
That's a bad thing. Collins has 2 Searing Blaze. Dang it. That's horrendous.
Look, it's normally good here. It just
he drew a card that's good usually.
Yeah. It's like normally I looked at the Dispel in the graveyard and got real excited about it.
Look at that. We can target a spell with our creature and then die.
Yeah, well, hey.
Does my trigger resolve? No, I lost.
Yeah, all right, fine. Now, if he plays a Snapcaster Mage, actually, because it's double targeting Collins, if he draws a land, it can do this weird thing where he Searing Blazes a Snapcaster Mage and then Searing Blazes the same Snapcaster Mage again.
That's the best. He also just kind of wins because he's attacking with 2 creatures.
Well, yeah, there's that. We'll see whether or not Andrew tries to play around Searing Blaze. I mean, he's not dead on the board. Well, hold on. Collins can try to prowess with some Searing Blazes and make him dead.
Yeah, you can target your own creature, right?
I think so.
Yeah, wait until no. Well, I think that the game's over this turn.
Well, one Searing Blaze, you can use one Searing Blaze to prowess once.
Yeah. He made a land drop, though, so he doesn't want to target his creatures anymore.
Swings not at Teferi.
Not at Teferi, wow.
Top card is Jace.
Ignore my powerful Planeswalker like that?
Collins, why'd you play the land? Real question.
Yeah. Honestly, you only need a Searing Blaze for 1 against Snapcaster Mage. I think Elenbogen's hand is forced, though.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Here's Snapcaster Mage. That's not good.
Nope.
It's going to target Path to Exile?
Yeah.
No, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's real dead.
Yeah. He's dead twice. Maybe 3 times.
Oh, just all of them. I just dumped them both.
Yeah. I could not flash that Searing Blaze fast enough if I was Collins.
You have 2 of them.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Can you beat this one? Can you beat the
4
other
mana?
one? I will cast 2 Searing
I will
Blazes.
respond to my own spell, and I will win the game. Collins Mullen 2-0 defeats Andrew Elenbogen. And what's looking to be a clean sweep now for the first 4 games.
Yikes.
In there, we'll go over to Jody Keith. He won this one last time 2-0. Needed a teammate to win this time, and that's happened. So Jody's just got to finish this one, and that 5th win will send them to the finals.
Yeah, for what's otherwise been a very dominant weekend for Spicklemire, Elenbogen, McVety, their back is really against the wall at this stage here.
So we're actually, correct, we're going to go over to the standard match between Todd Stevens and Max McVety, currently in Game 2. And let's take a look at our board. We'll get our life totals in a second here. On Todd's side, we have a Knight of Autumn, a 2/2 Saproling, a Venerated Luxodon, and a full grip of cards. McVety's got a Rekindling Phoenix and a 3/3 Steamkin.
Looks like he does have a Frenzy that was destroyed by that Knight of Autumn.
All right, so that's where all the cards in the hands have come from.
Ooh.
Kicked Fight with Fire. Okay.
Divide 10 damage as you choose. Maybe all upstairs plus Phoenix? Is that where we were?
Just all upstairs. I think Phoenix was cast this turn. Is that right? No, that
can't be right.
That can't be right. We'll figure it out. Lyra Dawnbringer. That's
a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, we've just got to have another Fight with Fire on Max's side as Todd will pass.
Yeah, he can't quite kick it.
Yeah, he showed 2 shocks in the hand. So we are on to game 3. McVety gets the first one on the board for his team.
Yeah, from 4, yeah, that is lethal. It's hard to lose after you kick a Fight with Fire and your opponent is not winning on that game. But yeah, so we're going to game 3 here. But what we do know for sure is that Collins Mullen has won the Modern seed. So McVety has to try to win this game in the hopes that Clay can pull off 2 upsets against Eldrazi Post.
Yeah, so Max now on the board. The X-Bear looks like Experimental Frenzy again.
And we've seen Max have some pretty good kicked Fight with Fires this weekend. He dispatched John Rossum earlier in the tournament with that, running some of those and resolving against Esper Control. And it's got to be a good feeling to resolve a kick Fight with Fire.
Yeah, we do see those Fight with Fires in the sideboard. Almost likely boarded in for Max. I mean, he's got to answer some Lyra Dawnbringer, so that part's easy.
Yeah. Combines really well with Experimental Steamkin.
Yeah, and it looks like we are not going to get a third game. Jody Keith, I'll confirm here, looks to have gotten the match over on the Legacy table.
Yeah, I can't think of many other reasons to just shake your opponent's hand in the middle of a match there. But yeah, it looks like things have concluded here.
And with that, they avoid the 5-0. We'll call it McVety gets on the board, but not enough. It'll be Jody Keith, Collins Mullen, and Todd Stevens heading on to the finals.
Yeah, definite payoffs with the metagame calls here. Collins Mullen on Burn. We've seen him pick up a lot of wins for this team. And Jody Keith with Eldrazi Post. Pretty favored against these blue mid-rangey decks.
Yeah, and this one, it's a well-deserved, rematch here, which